Some of our group was talking about what's the difference between mission and method. How would you define the differences there?
So mission is what you're articulating to the church. This is who we are. This is what we're about in our community. And method is how you actually go to execute that. So we like to get stuck on our method is Sunday. If everyone would come on a Sunday, then everyone would come to know Jesus. All the kids would be discipled. We would grow to a bajillion people. People just need to come on Sunday morning. One of our 3 service options, right? But then the method aspect being like, do people know how to do the mission without the building? Does this go beyond the 4 walls of our church? Yeah, questions? Well, thank you. Great.
All right. See you at dinner.
Yeah, you're welcome this time. Go a little blue here.
So in our group, we talked about how some folks would like a Barnabas in their lives, and there's like someone to encourage them to walk them through the platform. I guess the question is, given the need of mentors and encouragers and people to come alongside as you disciple, what is the biggest contribution that Barnabas has to this all? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So here's the problem. We all want someone to encourage us. I think we got to flip that. I think what we need to do is we need to be big boys and big girls and start doing the things of God. And what do I mean is this. I remember just kind of my own journey. I end up being more of a disciple maker than being discipled because of my settings with different college, playing college sports, all different things. And it was one of those things I always wanted someone to disciple me, but because of my different settings and the schools that I was at, I just said, you know what? At this stage in my life, I need to go make disciples. And so instead of always looking for someone to be my Barnabas, I felt like God saying, you need to be Barnabas to someone else. So if we were to be a room full of Barnabases, we would begin to identify and begin to show what it means to be encouragers, building one another up. And so I think what we do is we get caught in always looking for someone to disciple us. But I think what we need to do is we need to get caught up in saying, who is God calling us to disciple? See what I'm saying? Are we the encouraging people? Are we the ones building each other up? Are we the ones always complaining that no one is building us up? And let's be honest, Paul talks about it, that the church is so used to just drinking milk that it's never moved past to the meat. I think for a lot of people, we've just been drinking milk way too long. And now it's time for us to start eating the meat of God and saying, let's start being the Barnabas to the people that never had a Barnabas. Because maybe you're that individual that you've never had the Barnabas, and you're supposed to start being the encourager. Instead of waiting for someone to encourage you, go encourage someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And that can't be a personality thing. I think one of the things we have to realize, well, that's Rob. Well, Rob's an extrovert. That's not what this is at all. This is more, are we going to do the things of God? Are we so passionate about the things of Jesus that we're willing to step into anyone's life? That's the things that we have to do. What is God calling me to do? He is calling us all to be encouraging and to be strong in faith. And then all of a sudden, you see a very unique thing about Barnabas is that he handed everything over to Paul. It went from Barnabas and Saul to Paul and Barnabas. Are we okay if people exceed our giftings? Are we okay with that? Am I willing to, given an example, so I've been mentoring Omar for many years now, am I okay to see him excel in the things of God? Because that's what it's about. It's not about ego. We need to be good with seeing other people thrive in ways that we want to see thrive in our lives. And it's easy for me to do that because the guy that I worked for before I was a lead pastor did that for me. He wanted me to run hard. And so you know what? He wanted me to run hard. I want Omar to run hard. Omar should want someone else to run hard, and we're passing that torch along. Okay?
And if you think this was some kind of marriage made in heaven, I'm trouble, man. I love you. Rob has had tremendous, great, like you talk about any other setting I probably would have been in, I would have got fired like 5 times over. You know what I mean? But God blessed him with grace and patience. I think for me, one of the things we talk about continually is like, how do I have your grace and your patience to the person that I'm supposed to? I want people to run, and I want to kick people to get them moving. How do I have grace and patience, and love like Rob had for me for that, next person? So, yeah.
It's also a kingdom mentality. Like Jesus, I was just thinking of when the disciples were asking who can be great in your kingdom, like put us at your right hand and left hand, and Jesus says, how do you be great in the kingdom? You serve. And I think the mentality that somebody needs to serve me is the wrong idea. Who can I serve? And the whole idea of giving a gift to someone in any culture really is if I give a gift to someone, naturally that will reciprocate in a gift back. And so I think ultimately when we serve, when we put others first, it ends up coming back to us. That's the beauty of the kingdom of God. And so, yeah, don't be selfish on that one. Go serve. I like that. Any other questions?
Back there, Rob.
Yeah, Omar, could you maybe expand a little bit on the movement aspect of what you talked about? I know you did the other 4 well, but movement was a little fuzzy, so can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the reality is like if you're doing the other 4, movement will happen. Because what is required for movement is the leading of the Spirit and us following, and us being able to multiply missional leaders. If we can get those 2 things, movement will happen. And it'll be what God is doing, and we're leaving behind us people that can do the job and carry it forward and push it onward.
So here's a good way to answer that question. Go through the first 4, add them up, divide it by 4, and that number, that's probably where you're at with movement. Okay? Anthony. Oh, first up, go for it.
Rob, this is a bit of a personal question, but you talked about kind of this dark night of the soul you experienced. In that, how did Jesus kind of relit that fire in you and to keep going on mission in light of the challenges you're facing?
During the first talk?
Yeah.
For me, it's the always what is, what could be. I think we have to realize, do we really understand the gospel for ourselves? So for me, is like, when I talk about like being saved, I talk about him saving my life. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to heaven, I'm punching a clock. Like for me is like, and I've shared this in the past, like when he saved my life, he saved me jumping off a building. So there was no other place to turn. So for me is like, it's always like the big picture is, he's in it. He's done it once before. He's going to do it again. He's done it again. He's done it again. And so whenever we've gone to a dark place, whether as a family or as an individual or in ministry, it's knowing that God always shows up. And it's in our waiting, right? It's in our dark night, if you've ever read that book. It's in the dark night of our soul that God does the most work. God doesn't, it's like being part of a team. God doesn't do the most work when you're winning, right? You learn more when you're losing. And so for me is like, I look back at our 10 and a half year journey of church planting, and we know how we talk about the start-stop. Like if you could dream and see what it was going to be like, but all the other things. So when I talk about now what we're doing at our church, those are the dreams that Sue and I had 13 years ago. Preaching in bars, loving neighbors. Like, we don't exaggerate our numbers. Like, we were 80 people, and we served over 93 families in the community of Mahwah when Hurricane Irene hit. Those are things that I wanted to see, that the church wasn't filled with a bunch of, bull. So for me, is just keep seeing that, like, why am I going to keep pushing? Because Jesus saved me. So when we talk about the gospel, like, I would ask the biggest question of you all, like, do you really believe the gospel? Do you believe that Jesus saved you? Do you believe that any good thing in your life is Jesus sanctifying you? Have you even seen him be healer in some kind of capacity, small or big? And do you actually believe that he's coming again? Because this life is really sucky. But the life to come is going to be so stinking awesome. So how do I get through my dark nights, or how have I? I remember what he saved me from. He saved me from jumping off a building at King's College. Can't get any worse than that. And I say that with a deep conviction, because if you ever hear me talk about November 6th, it's the same response, because it was the best day and the worst day of my life. And I'll never have a worse day than that day. Wow, that was really deep, huh? Whoa.
Okay, how do we follow that up? I don't know how to segue that.
With pouring into church planting, pouring into the people, pouring into the church, as much as you guys do, how much of a strain does that take on your own family?
I'll answer it first. You can answer it second. What a beautiful day. Okay? Now I feel like a talk show host. I get to do this with my wife, and I have a gorgeous daughter who's playing on the keyboards. And so I have an amazing wife, like, who keeps me well-rounded. Not balanced, because I'll never be balanced. Okay, you can't balance Rob Parker. But it's trusting my spouse to know when to speed up and when to slow down. And yes, I think church planting has caused wounds on my children, but they're wounds that we work through together. But remember this, my father was a businessman. I have wounds from him being a businessman as well. We just like to kind of glamorize them because they're, pastor kids' wounds. Truth of the matter is, we go to war. We wear armor. We're going to have wounds, but our wounds make us stronger. So having a strong wife, being a man who says, when she says no, no means no, yes means yes, and then when she doesn't answer, I do it anyways. But if she says no, I don't do it. I don't do it. But I got to be honest with you, the best thing that God has ever given me, and I've really been saying this, the best thing is having a strong wife that I trust. Best thing that God ever gave me next to my salvation was Sue Parker, because she's the one that holds me to the grind, doesn't put up with anything, and I'm man enough to let her correct me when I'm wrong.
Well, I'm going to interject real quick. Don't forget about the talk Gino did last time on Family on Mission. He wasn't here? All right. We'll go watch it on YouTube. Because the idea is that it's not family and mission, it's family on mission. We do this as a family together, and so they're with me.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. I talk about it at home. Work is not just like I'm really good at compartmentalizing. I come home and it's like everything shuts down. I don't answer my phone like I do. You know what I mean? But we also talk a lot about just church and what it looks like, what God is calling us to, continual communication, with Carrie, as far as what's happening, is this too much, am I gone for too long, things like that. You have to be able to process, as a family and feel like as part of our covenant together, we're in this together. So an example of this would be I was sharing with my kid, my 7-year-old, about Revelation 7, where John sees his vision of everybody that, comes in. She starts jumping up and down, screaming, and I was like, what is she doing? She's like, John saw me, John saw me. And I was like, this just got real. This idea, this concept thing, this got real. My daughter believes she is a part of God's kingdom, you know, because we talk about it, and she's a part of it, and so.
All right.
Yeah, and they
We
they have to own the mission too. So a beautiful thing is, like Sue was sharing a story in the very beginning of the morning. What's been going on in our missional community is just as much her, if not more, than me. Like when we talk about rebirthing, that rebirthing conversation came from her. So do I let her lead as well? You know, I mean, think about what Omar said about Lydia. You know, women, you have a huge part of this kingdom. And my wife disciples just as many, if not more people than I do. And she'll walk into a community and people will just flog her because how she's opened her home, how she's made her life available. And so when you do mission together, family on mission, that's when mission is fun.
All right. I think we have time for one more question. I saw Marici back there with his hand up. You still got a question? No? Anybody?
I'll make a statement if no one has a question. God has already called us to partner with him. He's already given us everything we need to be able to get the job done. If we needed more, that would have been made known to us. He is already on the move, and he is extending a hand out and saying, are you going to join me for the ride? You know, so whether it's, hey, you know, I can't do it until somebody disciples me, he says, I'm calling you. I'll walk with you. No one else will walk with you? I will. I'll take care of your discipleship. Don't worry about that. Come follow after me. Lord, I can't do it because my church, blah, blah, blah. I've called you to do it. I'm already on the move. Are you going to join me? Jesus isn't up there being like, oh man, if the plant church would just, then maybe I could. Not doing that. Not doing that with our church. Not doing that with your church. Not doing that with your leaders. He's already called you. He's already on the move. Are you going to join him? Are you going to step into it? Amen?
All right. I think it's a good way to... All right, Marici now has a question.
No, it's a different question, but in light of what you guys brought up, family on mission, I think those guys are great. They have, you know, lives and they're honest, but I think they have a huge capacity in ministry to be self-deceptive as to our balance, right? So I spend a lot of time these days actually counseling pastors' kids, and I think that's when you need a Barnabas in your life to make sure you are balanced. And sometimes that needs an outsider point of view, not just your husband and wife. And I mean self-deception just in a good, intentional way. That we can become overly ambitious and become unaware of our present circumstance or your present relationship. So just in light of that Barnabas comment and then the family thing, that may be a time where you need a Barnabas in your life.
Hey, just to piggyback on what Anthony just said is, so my son just turned 21 this past week, and I sent out a text to all the men who've been mentoring him over the last 10 or 12 years. And on his birthday, his 21st birthday, they all texted him. Before that, when he turned 15, all those same people wrote him letters of encouragement. You see, it takes a village to raise a family. And if we are family on mission, it doesn't mean Sue and I. It means we as family, the church, are on mission together. And so how are we putting those people in our kids' life to be able to mentor and disciple them as well? Okay?